Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to part 2 of my infertility story slash a PCOS story. I am just continuing on with my first video, so if you have not watched that, I'll link it above and below. I would suggest watching that first. That video goes into detail about how I found out I had PCOS and infertility. And now this video is going to go into what we have done since that diagnosis in the hopes of starting a family. So rewind, it was November of last year, so November 2016, that I got my PCOS diagnosis. And my doctor had told me, if you're serious about starting a family, you're going to need to do fertility medications, fertility treatments, because I might never have a period again on my own. There's no way of knowing. So Ben and I were at the point now that we were ready to start a family, and this is something that we wanted. I have wanted it forever. I've wanted it, you know, I would have been ready the moment we got married. Ben, it took a little bit longer, but one day, for whatever reason, it just clicked with him and he was like, I'm ready, and I was ready, and the only thing that wasn't ready was my body. So it was time to kick it into high gear and start these treatments. And my doctor was very optimistic. She really thought that fertility treatments would be all we needed, and that unfortunately was not the case. So I did my first round of Clomid early December. So Clomid is a very common fertility drug that essentially makes you grow your eggs to a size that is mature enough to release. So I have a ton of follicles in my ovaries, but none of them were maturing enough to the point where you then ovulate. So this is what that drug does. It makes your eggs grow to a large enough maturity to then release and then get pregnant. So this first month I had to do Provera, which I talked about in my last video. Basically starts your period, and then on day 3 of your period you start Clomid. If you're unfamiliar with Clomid, it comes in 3 different doses: 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, and 150 milligrams, and you cannot go higher than 150. My doctor started me that first month on 100 milligrams. I took it for 5 days. I really didn't feel many side effects, which I thought was great because I had read horror stories about how terrible Clomid was, and I really didn't feel much. I felt okay. Around day 10 of my cycle, I was then supposed to start doing these ovulation predictor kits, or OPKs, which essentially are like a pregnancy test, but it detects ovulation. So I started doing those, and then on day 13, I had to go back into the doctor and get another wonderful transvaginal ultrasound to check the growth of my follicles. So we go to that appointment. I'm so excited. You know, at this point I had watched so many videos on women that went through this, went to their follicle scans, you know, had great news, and I was just really excited to see my little follicle, hoping that it was nice and big and ready to mature here in the next few days. And that didn't happen. So she looked at my follicle, she measured it, it was about 7 millimeters, which to be mature enough to ovulate needs to be about 3 times that size. And so she said, you know, you could still get pregnant, you could still ovulate, keep testing, keep trying. But if it doesn't work, I'm going to up your dose for next month to 150 milligrams. And so I took ovulation test after ovulation test after ovulation test, no positives, and my period never started. So I did not ovulate. So the next month meant Provera again, which Provera wasn't the worst drug, but it did make me feel a little sick. But then the Clomid, 150 milligrams, was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I finally was feeling all of those side effects that everyone had talked about. I remember watching Shannon Rose. She's one of my favorite vloggers who is going through IVF right now. She's a great infertility resource on YouTube. I remember watching her because she did Clomid first too, just having these horrible side effects that I was like, wow, I wonder why I'm not getting those. I got those. Once I went up to 150 milligrams, I got those side effects. They were terrible. I was so nauseous. I was so dizzy. It affected my sleep. Like, it was just a horrible 5 days, and I was like, God, please let this work this time because I don't want to go through this again. So we start the ovulation tests, we go back for my follicle scan, and this time my follicle was about, I want to say 10 millimeters. So it was better than last time, but still not quite where the doctor would have liked to see it. And again, she said, keep testing. You know, once you get that positive test, start trying. And if it doesn't work, do it again next month. A normal menstrual cycle, you would ovulate around day 14. In my case, this month, I got a positive ovulation test on day 21. So it was much later because my follicle was not in the size that it should have been that month, you know, at that time. But it still ended up maturing and releasing. It just took quite a bit longer. So I got the positive ovulation test. I was so excited. I was like, yes, it's gonna work this time. Like, my doctor was really confident that Clomid was gonna be the thing that worked for me. 2 weeks later, I got my period, which sucked. I kind of thought I was pregnant that month. I was having a couple of weird symptoms, which, you know, I hadn't had a period on my own in so long that I think I just didn't realize that they were actually PMS symptoms, and I didn't really know what PMS felt like anymore because I hadn't had a real, my body naturally ovulated kind of period in, you know, so long. So it turned out just being PMS symptoms. I started my period, but I took that still as like a great step in the right direction because I ovulated and I started my period, and I didn't need Provera this time. So this time I didn't take the Provera. I started my Clomid again, 150 milligrams, because that's the max. And I went through the hell of the 5 days. I went to my follicle scan, and my doctor said, this is the best egg we've ever seen. It was like 14 millimeters or something. I was so excited about that. And she said, I would hold off on trying until you get a positive ovulation test. Like, don't do it beforehand. And so I was relying so heavily on these ovulation tests, which if you've ever done one, you know the ones that are just lines, they are so hard to interpret. So it's 2 lines like a pregnancy test. It's positive if the test line is as dark or darker than the control line, which is really hard to tell. And I've learned not to quite trust these because I had a day where it was so close to the control line, but not quite that dark. So I took that as, okay, it's not ready yet, maybe tomorrow. And then the next day, it was significantly lighter. So that was my positive, and I had missed it. And I had been waiting for my positive test to start trying, which upon later doing my own research, because you guys, infertility takes over your life and you research everything. Upon doing my own research, I've learned that like you really should be trying for a little bit there before you're expected to ovulate. So I was so frustrated with my doctor because I was like, why did you tell me to wait? And then I wind up missing it. And like, had we been doing it in that week that I thought I might ovulate, you know, there could have been a chance because we still tried. But at that point, it was late. I probably already released my egg, like it was too late. So that was a really disappointing month because my doctor was very hopeful about that month because I had the best egg I'd ever had. And so she said, you know, things are looking good. We're doing much better here at that appointment. No need to come back. If you don't get pregnant, do Clomid again. No need to come back for a follicle scan this time. So I wound up getting my period 2 weeks later and had to do Clomid again for the 4th time. She said you really can't do Clomid more than 4, maybe 5 times until it starts to mess with your body and like it's not good. And Ben and I decided, because he'd seen how rough this medication was on me, to have the 4th time be the last time. I didn't want to go through it again. So 4th time happened, and again, I didn't get a positive ovulation test that month, but I kind of expected that because now I knew that I still had my period. I still ovulated without getting a positive test, so they're helpful if they work, but not to rely on them. So that month, around the week that I anticipated ovulating based on what had happened in the last 2 months, we tried very regularly. We had timed it what I thought was perfectly, and I was really, really excited about this month. This was the most recent cycle. I thought that it was it. Like, I really thought it was it. And then I had symptoms that I was so sure were pregnancy symptoms. Like, I was so sure. I felt so sick. I had what looked to be inflammation, bleeding, and spotting. I had back pain. I had just a whole array of other symptoms that I was like, there's no explanation. And you might be like, okay, the inflammation, spotting, and bleeding, that was your period. No, it wasn't. It was so faint, so light, one time, and resembled what is meant to look like inflammation, cramping, and spotting. And so I was like, sure. I, in previous months, had driven myself absolutely insane taking pregnancy tests from like 8 DPO on and continually seeing negatives. It, like, I learned is just not a good way to go about it, because it just is so gut-wrenching. Every day you see a negative. So this month I was like, I am not doing that. I'm just gonna wait and see if my period comes. I should also mention that I didn't have a positive test, but I had other ovulation symptoms that I've had in previous months. I would get a lot of pain in my ovaries that then would go away around the time that I ovulated. And I had, you know, other things that you're supposed to look out for during ovulation. So I had those. So I thought for sure I had ovulated despite having a negative test. And I told myself no testing until you miss your period. And the date of when I thought my period was supposed to come. So the video cut out here for some reason. What I was saying was that the date my period was supposed to come came and my period did not start. And I then, of course, because my period didn't come, that's like your number one symptom of pregnancy, thought for sure I was pregnant, took a test, it was negative. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just too early. I took another test, it was negative. Took another test, it was negative. About a week and a half goes by and I still don't have my period. And I'm still feeling off. And so I called my doctor and I was like, could I be pregnant? Is it possible? We had an appointment scheduled with our fertility specialist that week that I then didn't want to go to, of course, if I was pregnant. Like, I was really hoping I would be able to cancel that. I made it just in case I wasn't, was hoping I could cancel it. And they said, yes, you could be pregnant. We'll do a blood test. We do a blood test and it is, my numbers are non-existent. So I was very not pregnant. And that was really hard because I thought for sure that month I had these symptoms that are unexplained. I don't know what goes on in our body to make us think that. It's ridiculous and sucks. So it turned out to be negative. So I still wound up canceling that appointment because I was waiting on my test results. And so that's where we are now. That's the present. I did 4 rounds of unsuccessful Clomid, and we've been actively trying with fertility medication since November. So it's now May. And we have an appointment with a fertility specialist in San Francisco next week. And at that point, we're going to figure out the next steps. So I have to get some blood work done for that. Ben has to get a semen analysis done, which he is not very excited about. We have no idea how the fertility looks on his side yet, because my doctor didn't think it was necessary to test at that point, and now the fertility clinic wants us to get that tested, so we'll find out how that's looking. And then we're gonna go to this appointment. It's an initial consultation to kind of talk about everything. I'm going to get an ultrasound there as well, and then we'll go from there. And so that's where we are now. So that's why I wanted to share my story at this point, because I want to bring you guys along with us through this journey. So I want to do some vlogs. I want to talk about this first appointment that happened. So that's why I'm sharing my story now today. It was a very long story, so if you stuck around and watched the whole thing, I appreciate it. It's a very sensitive, personal, close to my heart story. So the fact that you watched it means a lot to me, and that you're here and that you want to follow this journey with me means a lot. And so hopefully we will be one of those many couples that are on YouTube that beat infertility and have a success story. And I think it's definitely going to happen for us. I'm very confident in this fertility clinic that we're going to. I have had people that I know personally that have had success stories through them, so I'm very confident. It's just a very scary next step to take, because real infertility treatments come with a lot of money and time and commitment. And for us, San Francisco, we chose to go to this one just because it's the one that we heard the most good things about. San Francisco is a little bit over an hour drive for us, so there's going to be a lot of appointments, a lot of driving, a lot of time. And so we're really hoping that it winds up in a successful pregnancy. And of course, if I do get pregnant, then I will be sharing my whole pregnancy journey and all of that, of course, on the YouTubes, because pregnancy videos are literally my favorite thing to watch ever. They're just my favorite. Okay, so that's my story. Surprise! We are trying to get pregnant and hopefully it will happen. If you want to, feel free and share some of your stories in the comments. I know it's a very personal thing to share. Or if you have a channel where you've documented your infertility journey, let me know. I would love to watch your videos because this is a community. Absolutely. There is a big infertility community on YouTube, and I'm excited to be joining that, sharing my story and joining it. And if you are one of those people that is going through this, just know you are not alone. There are plenty of us that go through this too, and there are plenty of success stories. So it happened for other people, it's gonna happen for us, it's gonna happen for you. So if you like this video and you like my stories, go ahead and subscribe. This was a very heavy, serious video, so go and watch one of my other funnier videos. I'll link some here to lighten the mood a little bit. So I will see you guys in my next video, and I'm excited to continue this journey with you guys. Bye!